So one night, he was just coasting along, paddling the boat, and he was just dreaming, thinking, and not even aware of any dangers. And as he was going on the boat, suddenly the boat had a bump, and it was like, huh? What's going on? And so it was like twirling and twirling, and there was like huge, like in a storm or something. Suddenly he felt himself drowning in the water there. But wait, there's something. I need to grab my medicine box. Oh, my medicine box. I can't let it get wet. I can't let it get wet. Oh, it's terrible. Ah! And then some native grabbed him and took him to the shore, and then he fell exhausted. But his medicine bag was okay. A few days, 2 months later, he realized it's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as that. Where are all my supplies? It's got lower and lower and lower. Where are all my supplies? Where are all my vitamins? Where are all the other medicines? I'm losing some. And now I don't have enough. And no sugar, no coffee, no tea even. Oh, this is tough. And he got lower and lower supplies. So finally one day he said, the old schoolboy's trick. And we get a bottle, write a message, and throw it down to the Zambezi River. Maybe someone will pick it up. So he wrote this note. He says, we're kind of lost. We kind of can't find a way exactly where we are. I've tried using my sextant, but it's been raining all the time. I can barely see where we are, actually. And also our supplies are running so low. Can you send help? And he stuffed it in there, and he threw it down there. A year later, somebody found it, and 150 years later, we still have that. Yeah, but it was no help to him at that time. And in the jungle, it's wet, very wet. And then the rains would come, and rain, heavy, heavy rain. Just like on Monday, except that lasted for a week and 10 days and 2 weeks and kept going and going. And they were drenched, totally drenched. It was so uncomfortable. Everything was so wet and wet. Even anything that had metal in it, or rusty. Oh. And then the shoes started having like mold on them, mildew on it, like they're all going bad. Everything was kind of just wet and clammy and uncomfortable. And in that weather, the mosquitoes love it. So the mosquitoes come and they all hover around and they see and they go dive bomb, zoom, zoom, and zoom. And so he was covered all over with bites everywhere in his body. Everywhere you could see was red. In fact, actually he had 27 times he had malaria. It was so bad. But this mosquito would come down on him and they would cause this malaria. And his whole family got malaria, including his sons. And one of his sons, Thomas, was lying there. And he had all these chills and he was shaking. He had a high fever, but he was shaking as if he was very cold. And he would shake, and then I'm exhausted. And then a while later, he would go shake again. And the fever would rise. Come down again and rise. And what was most dangerous is that the malaria could go into the brain. If you got brain malaria, cerebral malaria, you would die. And many children would die of that. So David Livingstone was looking at his son, and he's Thomas. He said, Thomas, let me pray for you. God, save him. All of our children had malaria, and they all came through it. But this one is really serious. He seems so sick. And then he got sicker and sicker. And so David said, let's get him up at a higher ground. Maybe if we move a little bit higher, he'll be a little better. Sure enough, he got a little bit better. And 1 month later, he was restored. Breathe a sigh of relief. In fact, later on, his wife died of malaria. It was kind of sad too. So malaria is a big problem over there. Even today, malaria kills many young people especially. By that time, there was still the great Kalahari Desert that had not been explored. The great Kalahari. And David Livingstone decided, I need to go. explore this whole desert. I know it's not just a desert. In the desert, there's beautiful areas too, and I need to map it out. So he started going into the desert. The vegetation got more and more sparse. But the morning wake up from the sun was beautiful. In the desert, you can see the sun rise, and everything looks so pretty, actually. But then there were all these salt lakes, these salt flats you had to go through, just full of salt. For miles and miles, just salt. And to go through these salt places, salt flats, the wagons had to travel carefully. And the wagons would often sink in the salt because it was all salt. And so they would sink. And then you had to push, push. Very hard work to go through the salt flats as they went on and on and on. But in the salt flats, in the desert, there were all kinds of beautiful little animals. The merkits would be staring at them. The merkits are little animals, like about 10 inches tall, and it was so cute. They had ears that could flap in when the sands were too windy or too much sand, or they were digging in the sand. They would flap in their ears, and they would get together like a social club. They were different merkits that would stand together, and they would have a little gang or fellowship of people, of little merkits. But they would have this funny thing where they would take turns. One of them would be a sentry watching, just in case there's danger. And every hour they would change a sentry. So some merkit would be standing there. But at all times, the merkits were watching them. It's like, ooh, this is really interesting. Of course, they had beautiful deer too. Some of the deer were just gorgeous. You know, gemsbok deer or springbok deers, and they would be flying in the sky, beautiful jumps. Of course, there were all those kinds of little funny things like dangers, like leopards chasing baboons, or lizards in the desert. The lacertids were like long-tailed lizards, and they would scurry around. And David Livingstone liked to record them all down. Record. As a biologist, he wanted to know what were all these things that were happening in the desert. He was so excited. But water is the main thing. Water in the desert is dry. It's really dry. And their feet were getting blisters. It was so hot. The leather on the soles were getting burnt, getting weaker and weaker. You could feel it, and you could feel that the leather was wearing out, and the sands were so hot. And every time they walked, they would have to be like, wow, this is really so difficult. And they had 2 guides with them. These 2 guides were supposed to be to help them find water, because the local people can figure out this plant is a plant that has water, that doesn't. This plant, we can chew on it, and water will come out. And this way, Dr. Livingstone was able to find some 42 fruits that were in the desert and 32 plants that were in the desert. So he could identify them and mark them, which were the plants that would guide them to water. But these 2 people were actually frauds. They were fake. They were not real guides. They had been sent by the chief to fool them so that they would go astray, to the wrong direction, so that they would lose their way and finally, hopefully, die. And the chief was so evil, he planted these 2 guides there. But soon they realized there was something wrong. The guides kept taking them to one wrong place, another wrong place, another wrong place, and they knew this is wrong. God help us. We need to find a good guide, And then suddenly, one day, they saw this woman running in the desert. They said, grab hold of that woman. That woman may know what's going on. Hold that woman there, and let's talk to this woman. But they couldn't talk too well because it was a different language. So they used hands, like water kind of thing, and then try to talk to her like that, and so that she would understand. And then maybe she would understand this kind of thing. Yeah. More? Like this? Yeah? So it seemed like to work. She seemed happy with that. And so she took it, and Then she began to guide them, and oh, time's up. Come back next year. Next year's Vacation Bible School, and continue the story. All right, next year. How many will come back next year? Yeah, come back next year for the story. All right, next year. Tomorrow? Shall we finish tomorrow? Tomorrow? Shall we finish tomorrow? Auntie Wendy, can we finish tomorrow? Yeah, okay. She said yes. Okay, thank you.